Aloha. Today I wanted to go a little further into the New Age, New World Order deception and really just give some examples of the future version of the Hegelian Dialectic and really just allow you to see what is being sold, because a lot of people who are not who have not really engaged at all in the New Age community won't even know a lot of this stuff exists. So when people talk about like the Reptilians or the Pleiadians or something like that, it's kind of like this outside sort of thing, and really only kind of relates to certain people like David Icke. So David Icke is tuned into this same thing and this same kind of perspective, just from a different angle. And I'm going to share with you two videos right now from this one channel, Bridget Nielsen YouTube channel, and she shares her information, I guess, for the reptilian perspective. And then the next video will go into listening to her Pleiadian story. And this is a good example of how these programs exist to get people thinking on a particular format to have a particular outcome. So just as much as George Bush Jr. was telling you to go into Iraq because the Twin Towers were attacked by Afghani terrorists, it's the same thing. The reptilians are the same thing. So you have your superheroes and you have your supervillains. So underneath all the cabal and the Illuminati and all this other stuff, you have the reptilians, and underneath the so-called benevolent aliens or extraterrestrials or the secret space program and all this other stuff, you have the Pleiadians and the beings from Sirius and so on and so forth. So we have all of these stories that are generated to you, and they're sold to your consciousness based upon whatever's comfortable for you. And everything is out there. It's like a buffet of information that you can just pick and choose whatever interests you. And the internet, it just provides, it's the buffet of information, and you basically lock yourself into a particular version of reality based upon the level of consciousness that you are, divided by the illusory programs that are meant to maintain a particular vibration and promote a particular level of consciousness or focus within the individual, subconsciously and consciously. So just as much as somebody can spend their entire lives convincing themselves that they are a Democrat or Republican, the same thing goes for people convincing themselves that they are Pleiadians or Syrians or Andromedans or whatever it is. It's just another form of community, in a sense. And this is what the New Age community is. And it's so attractive to people because we've been locked into this negative energy and so-called separation and destruction for so long that anything that's talking about compassion and empathy and love and light and the law of attraction and all this stuff and channeling energy, it's all the same. It's going to be very attractive to you because you've been in the dark for so long. Now something that looks like light is going to attract you. The only thing is that is like CFL light. The New Age is CFL light or fluorescent light. It's an artificial light. It's external. It's a stepping stone for you to step back into your own light that is beyond any kind of fairy tales or storylines that need to be externalized. It's just like creating. So all the Pleiadian, Andromeda stories, all that other stuff, it's just another form of convincing yourself like the limitations of particular races. Not to say that they don't have a meaning and a purpose, but just to see how that vibration exists in reference to the soul essence. So the soul exists on lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes. I mean, it's a never-ending experience. So for you to convince yourself that you are African American, not even going into the Aboriginal American story, but that's just another example of how we compartmentalize and shrink down our perspective to have a particular effect. It's another slave mentality, or another design for so-called community. Anyway, when we lock ourselves into ideas like that, we lock ourselves out of our maximum potential, or at least getting on the course of seeking that maximum potential, because we've created another limitation. In a sense, the human experience is a limitation because it's the physical reality. The vibrations of density are not at all they can't really shake a stick at the non-physical energy that exists. The example of this is going to go into the visible light spectrum in reference to all energy within the electromagnetic spectrum and beyond, like what we don't even know of all energy that exists, the essence of infinity. So the only thing that we can perceive right now, like in reference to the villains and the superheroes, like even the physical reality of the human experience could be seen as like the villain in reference to what people are observing as the superhero, which are the Pleiadians and the Syrians and Andromedans and all this other stuff that have people like soaking up all of this, these storylines that create an effect. Channelers, this is why channelers are heavily locked in to the perspective of the extraterrestrial, heliocentric, alien agenda, new age mentality, is because that is a synthetic universe. If you listen to any of these channelers, they tell you they are speaking in the so-called future that doesn't exist yet. It's a probable future. So it's not organic, it's synthetic. It's based upon the energy or the vibrations of the consciousness of the dense reality that we are experiencing right now. So how I see those energies are, the channeling energies are hollowed out consciousness that have separated itself from nature in order to create a synthetic universe where they can maintain themselves to be gods and kings. And in order for those synthetic universes to exist, they have to convince the root system of the density timeline, the density experience, to project with its consciousness into the so-called future, the probable futures, the transhumanistic, synthetic technology, alien extraterrestrial based futures, where these hollowed out entities, disconnected souls, can then manifest into the empty souls of the density program that has been duped into locking itself into an illusion. No different than politicians telling you to vote for this person, vote for that legislature, vote for this, vote for that, do this. It's stealing time. No different than NASA telling you they're going to go to Mars in 2020 as long as you give them $100 billion in the meantime, between now and then. That's the intention. So these so-called powers that be, both in the government, political scene, NASA scene, are no different than the so-called powers that be that come through channelers and all this other new age information. It's all to create an effect on you in your moment right now, to steal your creative experience and lock it into a version of reality that is not your own. When you lock that version, when you lock that reality into your creative experience, then you are generating probable futures. If you are subconsciously programmed by illusions, then you will consciously manifest those illusions that were implanted or seeded by whatever power that you have given to an external force. So this goes for politicians, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye, Michio Kaku, the simulation theory pushers, the transhumanism pushers, the SpaceX pushers, the NASA pushers, the climate change agendas. All this stuff creates an effect in the so-called future. And everything that gets lost is right now. The people are still impoverished. The people are still being poisoned by the food and the water and the psychology of the education system, the separation from nature, and stuff like technology is being expanded upon as the next evolutionary step from monkey evolution to humanity to humans merging with technology. It's all a big illusion to separate you from nature at its essence, so that you will inherently separate yourself from the higher mind and then the soul. So if you separate yourself from understanding the relationships and the ancestral connections of the earth body that you inhabit right now in this moment, which is an example of how people give all their energy away to the Pleiades and the Arcturians and the Andromedans and all this other stuff in the New Age perspectives. If you give all your energy away, no different than giving your energy away to politics, if you give all that stuff away, you're giving away your creative experience to watch a movie. So people who are in the New Age program are watching Pleiadian movies. If you're in the David Icke program, you're watching reptilian movies. If you're in the Alex Jones movie, you're watching the globalist movie, and we're the Americanas that are gonna take back, we're the revolution, that whole thing. If you're on the Bernie Sanders movie, you're watching the progressives and the aggressive progressives movie, and TYT. If you're in the Fox and CNN and MSNBC program, then you're watching Donald Trump and Barack Obama. If you're in HBO, you're watching John Oliver and Bill Maher. All of these are designed to keep your consciousness locked in a box within a box within a box forever, to contract your consciousness. Because once you get a hold of your own experience, then that's when you start expanding consciousness. And if you start doing that individually, it will start to take effect collectively, and it will remove the power from the so-called power from the so-called powers that be. On the physical reality, we have politics, the government, the so-called Illuminati, and all this other shit that's going on, the globalists and all this. This is not to say none of this stuff exists. What I'm saying is that to see it from a vibratory perspective, this is how it exists in the physical reality within our waking state. Now, if that exists, if there is a as above, so below space of that existing here, then you have to understand that there's a non-physical essence of this same type of energy. If it is of a non-physical essence, it has to and it needs to sell something to a lower vibration. It has to sell that same mentality from a higher, so-called higher perspective. This is the channeling energy. This is where channelers come in, talking about all this love and light and unconditional love and the law of attraction and all that other bullshit. Because they need to sell you, instead of NASA and SpaceX selling you 20 years down the line or 10 years down the line, they need to sell you 200 years down the line. And it's more brighter and effective and so on and so forth, because it's believable because of the implanted seeds of generations before us who believed in these storylines, you know, in the early 1900s and beyond that. And then we believe the ancient alien stories, and we make these programs for ourselves. So to reiterate, the channeling energy is, how I'm seeing it, a hollowed out consciousness, this separated from the most high essence, separated from the soul, separated from the organic nature. This is why these images of gray, it's so gray, there's no color, aliens and all this stuff. It's a separated from, it's a representation of a dead, the undead. You can still be undead and have a high intelligence. This is what these extraterrestrial, so-called extraterrestrial channeling energy is. It's the maxing out of the idea of intelligence that is based upon our intelligence, this moment right now. So if we are dumbed down into a technologically based transhumanism foundation, then you will create probable futures where these empty ass hollow souls will exist in these particular universes. This is what this channeling energy is. And in order for that energy, those hollowed out souls, to exist in those probable futures, they have to send back seeds that plant those manipulative timelines, probable timelines, in the their so-called past, which is our present moment, to project for our consciousness, to project that synthetic future. This is the synthetic universe that I'm seeing in reference to the New Age agenda. We, as the relationship of the soul to the dense reality, the light and the dark, in this experience, because those channelers are not in the experience. It's like a possession. They have to take over the body, which means that that body, that conscious being like Daryl Anka and Brad Johnson for Adronis and all, and Cryon, all these, they have to give permission to these so-called beings that exist in order to take over. So it's like it's basically like a demon possession. Instead, they're giving this energy permission, and this energy, instead of a demon, and I don't like using that word because I'll just use like a hollowed out soul, because the energy or the information that is the relationships between angels and demons is different than what these channeling energies are. These channeling energies are like commercial, they're like hollowed out entities, that parasites. It's a parasite. So it's different than, other storylines that exist that are outside of this New Age lingo. So I'll just use the term like hollowed out parasite consciousness. It needs to have permission to channel this energy for people to seed a so-called probable future. So we have these sick and diseased, in a sense, psychologically, a lot of the times, people who are in that space because the healing needs to take an effect from escaping out of the destructive programming of the commercial timelines, the commercial mainstream reality. So the New Age communities are based upon escaping, an escape mechanism like a tool or a prescription drug that gets overused. The New Age program and the New Age community is an escape mechanism from the mainstream destructive reality. So the New Age community creates this superhero community that is fighting the powers of the destructive community of the old world, the mainstream world. Mind you, this New Age community still believes in the heliocentric model, still believes in the monkey evolution program, still believes in the Big Bang and all the emptiness from the NASA program. It still believes in all of these deceptions that are part that set the tone for people to believe in this, to pretty much create these non-physical probable timelines in the so-called future. They still believe in all that stuff, and that's why it exists. So like I said before, this in other videos, these energies, they play the numbers. It's the casino. The house is always going to win if you keep playing their games. The only way to affect this entire reality from any kind of movement is to address the entire casino. The New Age community is still playing blackjack with the Monkey Evolution program, and still playing 3-card poker with the Big Bang and the heliocentric model, and craps with the heliocentric model, and playing the slot machines with the Pleiadian star systems and all this other stuff, and playing, what else is in the casino? Backgammon, is that in there? Whatever other casino game, they're playing that when they're focusing on the channeling energies and all this other stuff. It's all just a design, and people think they're winning because they are different people than they were 5 years ago. Oh, I used to be a lawyer. I used to be, a university professor. I used to be a banker. I used to be this. And then I found a new age community that just really took me in and really showed me who I really am. And it's all about the law of attraction and the secret, and fighting the cabal and the Illuminati and the reptilian energies and all that other garbage. It's just an escape mechanism. It's an artificial foundation. So no matter where you run inside the casino, you're going to run into another trap. You have to get out of the casino completely. Otherwise, it's just going to suck you in even further. So I'll play these 2 videos real quick, and then you can see how people have convinced themselves of these particular storylines that have no real tangibility. They're all based upon no different than NASA programs. It's all based upon, a storyline or a book that somebody wrote. And a lot of these books that are written are based upon channelers who get this energy. So, like I said, you can have an intelligent entity still be anchored in a malevolent intention. It can have the most intelligence. In fact, that's what I'm saying is the point of this whole thing. In the density program, you can have the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers just walk around being pieces of shit and telling you to your face that they're pieces of shit and not giving a damn about people, because it takes so long for things to change within this dense reality. But when you have non-physical entities that are vibrating on a particularly high vibrations, if those entities want to work with these innocent creator beings in the dense reality, the only way they can do that is by selling you in the 90th percentile of high vibrations, unconditional love. Otherwise, they're going to be labeled as like demonic energies, and they were back in the day. It's the same thing. So this is why these channeling energies and these storylines have to oversell you this love and light and compassion and empathy, but it's all empty. It's all disconnected. So this is why they have to sell you the 90th percentile of that information, so that they can, that little 1% or 2% that keeps that is their real intention for creating the probable universe, that's what they're really focused on. But you won't see that because you're clouded by the smog of love and light and compassion and unconditional love. Those storylines, who the hell's gonna say anything against, unconditional love and compassion? And that's the thing. It's not saying something against it. It's saying that this has an ulterior motive. There's something there. If they're not talking about the system from the inside out, if you are constantly channeling your energy from the outside in, all these Pleiadians and all this other stuff, and limiting yourself to another physical experience, another dense reality, like these starseed systems and all that other stuff, you're creating an illusion within an illusion. I don't give a shit. It's no different than a materialistic person consuming their reality from the artificial ego perspective. Like consuming themselves with pride in the fact that they're the general manager of Office Depot, or it's no different than that. So you're basically, if you're calling yourself a Pleiadian, you're like the general manager of the Office Depot of the Pleiades. It's the same shit. There's no difference in that reality, because you're not in those realities, because you're not tapping into the essence of the experience overall. And it sure as hell ain't connecting to the stuff that the New Age community doesn't address. Obviously, stuff like the outside of the NASA programming and the government program, the Big Bang and the monkey evolution, all that other stuff is not being addressed. That's one big red flag right there. And the so-called New World Order is going to flip the script, just like channelers have to sell you the idea of unconditional love. Since the consciousness of the people is raising right now, the people on the boots on the ground level have to sell you a higher vibration of mind control, which is the New Age, New World agenda, the New World program. So they have to sell it from a peace and a unity and all this other shit. This is what all the LGBT legislature and all that other stuff is, and the Pope going around talking stuff, and Leonardo DiCaprio going around talking about climate change for the United Nations, and Hermione Granger talking about he for she and all this other stuff. It's setting you up. And actors getting involved in politics with Bernie Sanders talking about stuff that's not regular politics, and Trump talking about, taking our country back against the globalists and all this other stuff. It's priming people up to get in the mentality of a so-called higher vibration, but it's just another control grid. And the so-called highest vibration of this mind control grid is the New Age community. And it's no different than the old school Hegelian dialectic of selling you Democrats and Republicans, wets and dries, and black and white and all this other shit. The new style is going to be reptilians and Pleiadians. Which side are you on? And David Icke sets this up. All your alien whistleblowers set this up. The Secret Space Program, Corey Goode, David Wilcock, all these people set this stuff up to make you choose a side. And if it's obvious to choose not choose the reptilians and all this other stuff, because they're connected with the cabal and all this other stuff. It's channeling people to create a particular outcome. So I'll play this video and then you can see for yourself. And here, just listen to how this stuff is sold to basically, like, this is why I get so passionate about this, speaking on this stuff, is because there are young kids who are buying into these storylines, these young 17, 18, 19-year-olds, because that's how this program works. It's young people and older people, and the people in between are usually caught up in some kind of system, either working or whatever it is. But these communities, for lack of a better word, prey on people who are just lost, in a sense that they need some kind of something to grasp onto. So you have the people who are completely hopeless and helpless, the older generation, who just don't want to deal with any of the politics anymore. They spent their whole lives in religion and politics and so on and so forth. So they want something tangible. So the New Age seems tangible to them. So they lock on to the channeling community and and the secret released disclosure documents of the extraterrestrials and the aliens and all that other stuff. It's in the UFOs. It's attractive to people. And then you have people coming out of high school who have nothing. They're like, well, politics is shit. School is bogus. Like all these other people that are like into their cars and all this other stuff. That's not who I am. And then you have these attractive sort of bright people who are talking about, oh, well, just come to the love and light side of the reality where everything is about crystals and star seeds. And are you a Pleiadian? Oh, you must be like an Arcturian or an Andromedan. You are something. You're like this, and you're like, it's just another box to put you in to create another artificial community. So this is one good example of an individual who is totally vested into, she's got like 19,000 subscribers or something like that. So she's heavily into the channeling community. She did an interview with Corey Goode, who is the secret space program whistleblower, sort of that guy and that whole thing. So apologies for the outside sound. I'm just gonna keep going. So here's this video, and you can see, and then I'll just go along with it.
Hey everyone, this is Bridget here, and today I wanted to talk about reptilians. I get asked about it a lot.
See, it makes
so
it
we're
like,
just gonna dive in.
See, they make it like, they try to soften it up and make it like cartoonish and like, oh yeah, I've already been through this, so we're just gonna we're just going to talk about it like it's just another thing. And it's like layers within layers.
What are reptilians? Reptilians are a limbic offshoot of the Zeta Reticuli civilization. And many of them were created from the original dinosaurs that were here on Earth, genetically modified, hybridization going on, that then led to what we know as reptilians today. Some are from other star systems as well, so they've come into our solar system and don't originally originate from Earth. Now, there's two kinds, malevolent and benevolent. And let's start with malevolent, just for kicks.
Easy.
So, are the government, powers that were actually reptilians? No. So what's happening with that is your reptilian center of your brain is actually projecting fear onto something that's frightful, such as our governments that we've created. And so it impacts us and comes back as a reflection of reptilian, because it's activating that part of our brain. But they're actually not reptilians, they're humans. Now, there are reptilians in cahoots with the government that have been since the time of the Nazis, that were working with them from inner Earth and also from beyond. And those reptilians, the ones that live in the Earth, were some of the ones that were giving the original secret governments the technologies, which is pretty interesting, that already had alliances to where the break-off Nazi group could actually have all the things that they wanted to do. So it was a great alliance. So in a way, reptilians are influencing kind of like the Earth and the government, but you don't need to get into the fear of it. And that's the thing. This is the thing. It's cool. I love having the symbol of the reptilian like in our mythos, because it's such a manifestation of fear. And we don't need to have that. We don't need to go into fear about anything. We just need to stay positive. Really, that's the most important thing. And of course, this stuff exists and it's happening. And that's why I want to talk about it too, is because we need to know.
That little princess in the Lego movie where she was like, stay positive, and she just loses her shit. That's what happens in the New Age community. This is what it's sold. It's just like, stay positive, just keep focusing on the law of attraction and all this other stuff. It'll just get better on its own. You're playing a movie for yourself.
Point, especially in the spiritual process, where we are starting to get empowered enough to where we can be told the truth, and that goes into disclosure.
You can be told the truth. See, this is where all this shit comes from. Like, the true truth comes from the inside out. It doesn't come from the outside in. That's a proof. That's a perfect example of how this entire new age universe or synthetic universe or probable timeline universe that I was talking about earlier in the video works. They need something else. It's still from the outside in.
But I'm going to tell you more of what I have found out to be the truth so that we can integrate it and process it and not be naive to these things. So there are also reptilians that live under Earth, such as the civilizations that have been rumored to be under Los Angeles to be.
So this is how it makes it believable, is because all of the information, like I said, in order to make a lie work, they have to install shreds of truth. So all of the underground military bases and all this other stuff, it needs to be integrated into like the secret space program and all this stuff has to be integrated with some shreds of proof and some kind of something tangible that people can grab onto and lock it further into their whatever they believe to be as their reality.
Under Earth, in a lot of these granite forming areas in Earth, a lot of the national park disappearances, that kind of thing. So there are civilizations of reptilians.
So the New Age community is basically like a professional version of what I just explained. It's a professional version, a community version of believing into the storylines as they have been pre-packaged. Instead of being packaged to you by like politics to make you go to war, that's like from a lower vibration. The mind control program is to pre-package a so-called higher vibration with love and light, but with the same intention to have another effect. The same effect from a different style.
One of my friends, actually, before I was into any of this, had an encounter in Peru maybe 20 years ago where she was taken by reptilians, and she is not a crazy. So it does exist even on this planet. But the thing is if you can discern and if you're present and if you can tune in to what you're doing, you're not going to put yourself in that situation. And so it's really about being clear and precise about your frequency, because you won't be in that place. And if something does arise, you will know to leave. And so it's really important with everything in this category of reptilians and beyond, because reptilians are representing our fears, is to stay centered and know that we are infinite and know that we can choose whatever energy and whatever experiences we want, and we are never disempowered. So that's so special and so important. Now, the reptilians are also involved in the abduction program.
It's like a mantra hypnosis.
A lot of them, some of them that abductees talk about actually are like doctors.
As the end all be all. Like anytime you bring something up, there's like a statement for that. Like I even emailed a particular channeler, and the response was in reference to how I'm perceiving the reality and basically how I'm explaining it to you right now. And the response was, I don't subscribe to that reality that you have created. Something like that. It's like you're in a different universe. I don't subscribe to that, and this is not my reality that I'm creating. I was like, okay, that's where people are. It's a stop sign. It's a stop zone. It's like, you're not even existing in my reality. It's just another, like I said in previous videos, it's basically apathy being sold to you as empathy. Like when they try to tell you that they're really empathic beings and all this other stuff, but they really don't give a shit or even think about. It's just ignoring the negative, the so-called negative. It's ignoring what's happening on the boots on the ground and locking yourself into the synthetic root systems of storylines like the Pleiadians and the Reptilians and so on and so forth. The benevolent and malevolent energies of the so-called powers that be, and because I had this and this and this and this person told me this. It's all just like what NASA tells you about Mars and SpaceX tells you about, whatever they're going to do.
Are really helpful helpful and benevolent, and then some of them are not so nice either. So there's a mix, even like through the abduction program. And one of the really interesting things that has come up is that I think it was maybe 2 years ago, I had about 5 women within a month, different parts of the world, never talked to each other. There's none of this information online. All said that they remember having sex with reptilians, and that they also had reptilian children. A few of them said, I remember these kids that were reptilian that I loved. They were connected to me.
This is the planting the seed of, no pun intended, of the the hybrid children storyline that makes the emotional body connected to the Pleiadian, Sirian, Andromedan, reptilian story, fairy tale. It's like, oh yeah, you have these children that exist in another timeline that are a result of, you know, these abductions and all this other stuff. So this is the synthetic universe, the probable timeline that I was referencing, that in reference to these channelers. So it needs to lock it into your belief systems. It needs to lock into your idea, your consciousness as a whole, so you can create that reality. So when they lock in like the emotional body with children and hybrid children, so the idea of hybrid children is no different than like the transhumanism. And if you want to see how that is locked in, this is really, I did a response or a comment on a video for the Brad Johnson channel's Adronis just recently. Yesterday he put a video out. I think it was yesterday or a day before yesterday, and he's basically saying there's going to be a timeline or a group of people who are part of the transhumanism timeline who are going to merge humanity with technology, and then you're going to have people who are going to connect with the indigenous storyline and all this. So they're telling you, or the indigenous connection with nature. So it's like stomping their foot in the ground saying, this is going to happen. This universe is going to happen, whether you like it or not. So either you're on board with what we're talking about, or you're on some other stuff. So that's like the channelers get really, or the channels that come through these channelers, they get pretty aggressive when they're trying to make, this is like when they respond to like stuff about flat earth and any kind of questions that don't fall into their particular versions of reality. They get kind of lost and emotional in a sense. So anyway.
And I, at the time, was like, what? I mean, come on. The whole hybrid children thing, made from abduction, they're living on the ships thing, like that's a stretch, you know? But then reptilian ones? I mean, come on. It was a little crazy.
She says so. Regular hybrid children, but reptilian hybrid. Oh my goodness! Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Because any of this stuff is going to take time to integrate for any of us, even if we've experienced it. It's like, no. I've had, say 10 dreams about something like this, and no, it can't be true. And it's like, yeah, we got to start letting it be true. So during that week, I actually had a dream with a reptilian, and I met my own hybrid reptilian son. And interestingly enough, he's the funniest and sweetest ever of any of the kids. So it's pretty interesting, and I don't know very much about that part of the program. I would assume that they, in their organizing of the hybridization program, would want to create a lot of uniqueness to integrate into humanity's future. And what better way than to have reptilians like come in.
See, my main thing is, when I'm talking about this stuff, is that these, oh my goodness, the entire premise for the New Age community and the New Age agenda, they're talking about all of these future probable future and don't know shit about our present moment and our ancestral storyline. Why? Because the illusion of the Big Bang monkey evolution theory, they've locked it away. They've severed their roots from their ancestors because they don't want to look at the monkey evolution program. So it's like twice separated. So they hate, it's like, oh God, it's hating an illusion to set the foundation for a happy illusion. So this is why these programs, these systems have to focus so much. Oh, we need to heal the earth with hybrid children. And you don't even know what the hell humanity is. You don't know what's happening here. You've consumed yourself with a probable future based upon extraterrestrials, aliens, hybrid children's channeling information and all this other nonsense that comes from an empty, hollowed out version of consciousness, all to create further synthetic universes that are, anyway, you see where I'm coming from. But that's the idea of the New Age program. No different than the politics selling you who's going to be president in 2020. You're in 2017 right now, and Donald Trump is your president. This piece of shit and all that other stuff. So it's the same premise.
Benevolent reptilians start to come in, and we not only, right now in human world, we're mixing with other races, and that's, oh my gosh, there's other races and there's prejudice. And it's like, just imagine when you've got like a mantis being walking down the street and a reptilian and a blob alien and stuff like that. We're really going to have to stretch, and we're really going to have to accept. So it's pretty cool, and I don't know exactly what's happening with those reptilian kids. I would assume that if they are going to come to Earth, I don't know if they were created for something else, but if they are coming to Earth, it would be much later down the line when people are more comfortable with this, because that would be pretty crazy. So anyways, reptilians. So there's benevolent ones that are assisting us. There's benevolent ones that aren't. And the key is to be clear in your vibration, to not let fear overwhelm you, to remember love, and you'll be good. And so I hope this was helpful. If you have any additional...
No, don't. So so that was her idea of how she, or the New Age community, deals with the malevolent energies. Now, this is an example of the so-called benevolent energies.
This connection, this star connection, is so dear to my heart, to my soul incarnation, that it's obvious, and sometimes I forget to do the obvious. So I'm going to do a video sharing Pleiadian energy with you. So first and foremost, Pleiadians come from the Seven Sisters constellation. A lot of you are probably familiar with it.
In the heliocentric.
And their energy is highly benevolent, beautiful.
Universe.
They're highly educated and wonderful, and they're really assisting us in our ascension. Now, they are most commonly known for being the really good-looking extraterrestrials.
What the fuck?
And we have their genetics.
Really good-looking extraterrestrials. So automatically you're already seeing that this has some shallow ass interpretations of what's going on here. I'm not even gonna go any further than that. You know what the hell
in us. They are one of our ancestors that created the human vessel, and also we come from them,
demigods.
From the stars. So they come at it both through our genetics.
This is my main point. These demigods. It's a demigod program. No different than any of the mainstream religions. The New Age religion basically is worshiping these demigods. The entire intention of the mainstream religions, including the New Age agenda, is to channel your energy away from your actual manifestation essence of the Most High, your direct connection to that source energy. It has to be channeled through something. And in that middleman storyline, that's where the probable timelines, probable synthetic universes get implanted, and the stealing of your time gets further locked into your reality, because these demigods come in and take over everything. Now, that, like I'm saying, there's not to take away from the existence of stuff that storylines that are a part of this. My main point is that the reasons why these stories exist, like I said, they have to sell you a little bit of the truth mixed in with the overall lie in order for you to believe it. But my main point is that these are deceptions to make you believe into the overall lie.
And through the stars. Now, the biggest thing for me is to just deliver the frequency of my own experience with Pleiadians. I can tell you details. There's plenty of other channels that can give you details, like Wendy Kennedy, etc. But for me right now, what I wanted to do was just share my story. So when I got my ET regression a few years ago, I was in the regression, and it was all for my abduction.
So an ET regression is an automatic invitation into a particular universe. It's a code, an extraterrestrial regression. So you are automatically setting yourself up for a particular experience. Just like a dream, just like somebody who is always angry every day of their lives, they will create an angry reality. So if you're going into an extraterrestrial regression, your consciousness will create a storyline based upon you allowing that information to come in. And non-physical entities, a part of the synthetic universe, these hollowed out consciousness that is a manifestation of our emptiness in this moment, overall, the collective in this moment, have created universes that will need to manipulate our present moment with installing all of this extraterrestrial alien storylines. So when she says, "Oh, I went to an extraterrestrial regression," that you're gonna get what you ask for.
Video. It's the first video I did on this channel. Now, the part that I didn't tell you, because I thought that was crazier at that time, was my connection that happened, which was with my Pleiadian counterpart. So I was in the regression, I was deep in the trance state, and I went back to my 5-year-old self to go up onto this Zeta ship as I was getting abducted. And my family was getting taken, my brother, my mom, my dad, and the regressionist, Barbara Lamb, said, "Why aren't you scared? Like, why aren't you totally freaking out? You're like a 5-year-old little girl, and you're okay with this happening. What is it that's making this okay?" And all of a sudden, my unconscious just flashed to this energy. It wasn't a vision quite yet, but it was this frequency that was completely safe, completely okay. And I relayed, I said, "It's okay. Like, I know that it's okay, that it's for a greater purpose." And she goes, "Why is this for a greater purpose? What is it that makes you know that?" And then I felt this the most warm, the most loving, kind of fatherly energy you can imagine just shower and hold me with deep, deep love. And I said, "Because he says that it's okay, and I trust him." And she said, "Who is he? Who is this guy?" And all of a sudden, my consciousness then flew into the stars, flew to the Pleiades. And somehow I knew it was the Pleiades. It's one of those things where you just know. And I went to the Pleiades and I saw this Zeus-like figure. That's the only way that I could describe it from this 5-year-old aspect of my consciousness. And he was just like this strong, old, like Zeus-like character. And I saw this ground council and I saw this Zeus-like character there. And they were talking about something very important. I could tell that it was kind of like an intense, heated, excited kind of environment. And one of the guys, one of the council members, you could tell it was council, kind of poked at the Zeus character, and he's like, you're meant to go to Earth, you're meant to incarnate, you're meant to go be on this planet and be our eyes
and be our anchor for this consciousness that needs to create a hollowed out synthetic universe for the future of, oh God,
on the ground. And of course the Zeus being's like, all right, I can go do that, I can do that. And so in this regression, I am feeling my cells just completely come alive, and I'm feeling the most overwhelming emotion I have ever experienced in my life, because it was my coming home. It was me finally coming connected to that soul part of myself that is expansive, that's fully ascended, that is bringing through like why I'm here on Earth, my mission. And it was so impactful and so profound. And so really it comes down to the details aren't as important of like, okay, well, who are the Pleiadians? What are they doing? Yes, those, the small details are important, but more so it's the connection. It's finding out who you're connected to, what star systems that your soul originates from. And once you feel that in you, then you feel at home. Then you know what you were meant to do here. And
that is pretty much the essence of the New Age community. It is a completely uprooted, separated mind control program that is anchored by the channeling energies and all of these non-physical, what I'm calling hollowed out entities, who are utilizing the consciousness of these duped and willing open channels, which are these innocent people, who have an extreme creative energy that is being unused because that energy is being channeled through the subconscious into illusions. Those illusions are creating synthetic timelines in the so-called future where these hollowed out entities are creating this fake universe, and they need us, or people in this vibration, in this timeline, in this moment, to set the foundation for that. And these community, and that's going to be profited off of by the so-called powers that be when the system tries to shift into a so-called higher vibration of control and manipulation. So that's pretty much all I wanted to share with this video. I'm not even going to let it play out. She's just going to repeat everything that she just said right there. It's just you connecting with your higher things and all this other stuff, and pretty much don't even at all acknowledge anything within the human experience, because it's all just nonsense and garbage and doesn't exist on your highest vibration. So there's no roots, no ancestral connections. You only connect with this pretty much synthetic demigod universe. It's just another limbo. Instead of being trapped in the limbo of density, you're trapped in the limbo of an artificial synthetic universe. Separated from your roots on every level, and separated from the source energy because you've channeled it into a middleman. That's pretty much it. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.